Salutations, my Legion of Doom. This is your Time Lord wannabe, the Brainstormer Pop Culture. Now, I know that the Wonder Woman movie was a smash hit, and I did enjoy it. However, I didn't quite like the third act of the movie. So I'll make my own Wonder Woman movie for the DCMV, or DC Comics Movieverse. Please go check out the other two I've made so far, Son of Krypton and the Gotham Bat. So, this Wonder Woman movie takes place in present-day Somalia. That's in Africa. Know your geography, kids. I will also be borrowing an idea from the YouTuber Nando V Movies, which is called Disarming Aries. Good YouTuber, love his work, check him out. So, however, I will be changing that concept drastically, while also borrowing inspiration from the 2009 Wonder Woman movie, animated film. So we have the prologue, which starts with Diana training with some Amazons. She is still young and inexperienced, so her opponent bests her. This enrages her, and she storms off. We then cut to her pouting, sitting on a cliff. Next is her attention being brought to a stealth bomber crashing through the barrier and landing in the water. So Diana jumps to the water, rescuing the pilot, and pulls Steve Trevor to the shore, where he wakes with a jolt and he sees Diana in front of him. And she says, with bewilderment and curiosity, "You're a man." Steve Trevor smiles and flirts a little, and "You're an angel." Then the title cover, Wonder Woman. So we established that Diana is not the best fighters compared to the other Amazons, and she acts like a spoiled brat when something doesn't go her way. So she has this childlike naivety when it comes to things from the outside world. And like the first 20 or 30 minutes of the first act is basically Steve being interrogated via Lasso of Truth. He says that a group of Somali terrorists, known as the Warmongers, took control of a U.S. carrier called the USS Constitution, which holds a lot of cutting-edge weaponry. Diana wants to go and help, eager to prove herself to her mother and to the Amazons. But her mother says no, and to throw the men into a dungeon. Diana, who says Ares is responsible, and as Amazons must help the world of man, confronting Hippolyta. Hippolyta says that it's not their job anymore to protect the world of man, and she will abandon this idea of going. Later that night, Diana breaks into the Amazonian armory, taking her mother's weapons, a sword and shield, while also taking her mother's old armor from the ancient war, which includes a set of wrist bracers. Diana then tries to break out Steve, but notices two guards. So she has to be creative and make a distraction somewhere else, drawing away the guards. So Diana and Steve sneak their way to the docks of Paradise Island, all the while we build up the friendship between them. Well, Diana, being too naive, thinks Steve's flirting is just how he's being friendly. As they sail away, the alarm bell rings, seeing a legion of Amazons running to the shore. We see Diana's mother looking at the boat sailing away, her face full of disappointment. And we see Diana looking at her mother. She looks down, showing some shame in her actions, but shakes it off and turns her head towards the new. One Amazon asks if they should pursue. But Hippolyta shakes her head, saying that Diana's made her choice, and she must live with it. Moving right along, the ship makes it out of the barrier. Steve asks what Diana was saying about Ares, and she tells the story of Ares and the gods, like the one her mother told her. Zeus created mankind, and for some time mankind was good, until one of Zeus's sons, Ares, the god of war, corrupted man, making them violent and hateful. A war among the gods had happened, and they all died, except for Ares. He lived past it and continues to influence man to this very day. Steve Trevor just nods and says, okay, not really believing her words. So they go to sleep, and we build up a flirtation/friendship between them. Next we cut to Steve waking up Diana as they near land. Cutting to Diana looking at the cesspool dock with this childlike wonder. The rest of the first act is Steve trying to make contact with American Air Force, and Diana learning about the non-black and white world of how hard it can be in man's world. So, in the end of the first act, Steve and Diana meet some of the warmongers who also have advanced weaponry pointed at the duo. Diana readily pulls out her sword and shield, eager to fight, but Steve drags her away and runs the other way. After the run, Diana gets angry and frustrated, kind of throwing a tantrum. Steve just brushes it off, states they need an army with guns bigger than the warmongers. Diana just pouts and notices a child looking at her. She says hello to him, and a little seed that builds up her love and naivety. But Steve gets suspicious of this kid, seeing how he's the only one near them. The kid allows Diana to get closer, and then he tries to stab her, because the kid is part of the warmongers. Steve comes to her aid, removing the knife from the kid, telling him to scram. Diana is obviously shaken by the encounter. She asks Steve, why would a child do that? Steve just shrugs, saying it's probably the only choice he's got here. Relating to the fact that Somalia is a third world country. Diana doesn't, or more accurately, can't accept that reason, and said that it's Ares twisting and warping the minds of men. Steve just looks at her with this blank look. He just shrugs and says, yeah, sure. So we cut to them entering a CIA safe house, and again, trying to make contact with the American Army and inform them of the situation. Diana, still trying to wrap her head around the event with the child, she asks Steve why the warmongers are doing all this. Why are the children joining in these actions? Steve just says maybe they want World War III. This shocks Diana, making her ask about the other wars. Steve answers the best he can. All this info really sinks into Diana. All of this in her head just sums it up to Ares, saying that when she kills them, that men will be good again. Steve tries to explain something, but they are interrupted by the blast of gunfire tearing the safe house up. Steve and Diana crawl their way to the back, narrowly avoiding the shots. As they run down the alley, they get cut off by some warmongers, eventually being led all the way to a bridge over a canal. One of the warmongers holds up a RPG. Diana attempts to shield Steve and herself, but the rocket hits her shield and sends her flying into the river below, with Steve yelling her name. End of Act 2. So, Act 3. Now it's sunset. Diana floats down the river. She's eventually stopped, and a pair of hands drags her out of the water. Cut to Diana, laying upon a blanket, as she slowly wakes up, spying two children looking at her, which causes her to jump and startle both her and the children. A hand rests on Diana's shoulder. We see a woman saying to her that she's safe, trying to calm her fear. The woman asks Diana whom she is, making sure she's alright in the head. This scene is to show that Diana has seen the bad of humanity all day, but this small family, that there is good too. Diana is renewed with this aura of passion to fight again. So, cutting to the USS Constitution at night, where Steve is being held hostage along with the crew of the ship in the lower decks. Diana is able to sneak aboard, taking out 2 guards quickly without much trouble. She grabs another warmonger using the lasso of truth. She finds out where Steve and the other hostages are. So, Diana is sneaking her way through the boat, taking out guards left and right. As she gets to the hallway where the hostages are, she spots 2 guards at the door. She can't go in fist first. She needs a plan, so she turns and spots something off screen. Next, as we view from the guard's point of view, we hear a ting, and the guards go to investigate. So we see nothing in the hallway, but as the lead guard goes forward, he is sprayed with a fire extinguisher, blinding both of the guards. We see Diana's shield in front of them, cutting to the hallway the guards came from. We hear a ding, and then the 2 guards are sent flying to the other hallway, from the hallway they were just in. So we open the door, and Steve and the crew see Diana. Steve is surprised to see her. Diana explains the situation to everyone and says there's a lot of them all across the ship. The captain of the USS Constitution states that they have to retake control of the vessel before the warmongers figure out how to use the heavy artillery of the ship. Diana states that if she kills Ares, then all of them should stop this. Steve quickly explains to the captain that would make more sense, saying that if he and Diana took out the leader of the warmongers, then the rest would probably give up. The captain agrees and orders his men to follow him to take back this ship. So Diana and Steve make their way to the command deck of the ship, taking out small opposition along the way. Some opposition along the way. Then they get to the command deck as they enter a large fight on the upper decks begins. The Americans versus the warmongers. Where the leader was, and it's a real short fight, Diana finishes him, but nothing happens. The fighting is still happening. Diana is still unable to comprehend it, so Steve breaks it down to her, basically giving the speech he gave her in the original movie, how he wishes it all boils down to one guy. But that's not how it works. Mankind is selfish and cruel, but the men that are fighting out there now, they're good men, believe in fighting the bad men, try and make a better world. After that, Steve says that he's going to join them, because he believes in a bright future is worth the sacrifices. And Steve leaves to fight, leaving Diana alone, deep in her thoughts. Diana goes to the window and sees the battle, where many on both sides are dying, but she sees the small details, like men shielding others from the flying bullets, or others dragging their injured friends away. Diana looks at her shield and sword, her face determined. She leaps from the command tower, landing into the thick of it. She slices the gun, tosses the closest warmonger aside, her face having the biggest grin, because this is what she wanted, to be a warrior. But she knows the Americans are becoming overwhelmed as the warmongers push forward. Diana looks at them. Time slows for her. As she looks at the enemy she's defeated, then to her allies. She then looks at her sword and shield again. Her arc in the movie has both to know that mankind is bad but can be good. And the other part of her arc is not to be only the sword, but she also must be the shield. So Diana casts away her sword and rushes to use her shield to shield the crew of the Constitution. As she protects them, the crew gets to cover, all the while, and all they can do is watch and try to help her by firing at the warmongers. Diana is starting to become overrun. A grenade flings her back, knocking her shield from her. As she slowly gets up, her hazy vision goes back to normal. She sees herself surrounded by warmongers. Diana attempts to shield herself with her arms, knocking her mother's braces together, causing a massive wave of energy to cascade out and fling many of the warmongers away. Steve and the Constitution crew notice this and use the much-needed distraction to charge forward and aid their ally, taking down the last of the warmongers. In victory, all of the crew let out a yell of passion, happy that they won this day. Now we cut to the crew picking up wounded and dead on both sides, taking them to their proper places, while the captured are taken to the brig. Steve and Diana watch all of them pass the duo, earning grateful nods and quick thanks from many. Just that happens, the rays of dawn shine on a new day, where the woman of wonder now enters the world. Roll credits. Alright, what do you think? Stay tuned for the next one. In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Until next time, my legion.